Hey everyone, good afternoon. I work primarily in the real-time control systems, HVAC, lighting, and energy management systems. And there's obviously a significant amount of technology changes that's going on in the world. And a lot of it is the implementation of IT kind of technologies, which is really what I've been working on pretty much all my life. And a lot of that work has sort of been done under the banner of the Coalition for Smarter Buildings, that is a partner organization of ALN. And one of the sort of interesting things that's happening is the C4SB is in the process of becoming part of the Linux Foundation. And the Linux Foundation, for those who are not familiar with that organization, is a foundation that manages obviously the Linux open source code, but it's also an organization that manages a lot of thousands of other projects that's sort of related to cloud native computing and computing generally. And this is a very, very significant change for the industry. So we are preparing to go to AHR, which is the trade show that is held at the same time as the ASHRAE winter meeting in Orlando in February, starting February 9th. And one of the sort of interesting things that we're doing is that the discussion about IT technologies in HVAC has been sort of bubbling along for literally decades. But we think this is a very significant change. So we wanted to sort of communicate the enormity of this change. We've basically gone down the path of using the "Who Moved My Cheese" sort of allegory to actually communicate what's actually going on here, the changes that's going on. So we've been talking about the "Who Moved Your Cheese" sort of concept in Monday Live, which is a show that we do every Monday. And that is going to be the theme of the AHR Expo and ASHRAE outing. Because we really want to communicate that it's not just one thing that's changed, it's actually a lot of things that's changed, both technology and practices, how you buy stuff and how you deploy stuff and how you build stuff. Literally, it sort of impacts everything. And one of the sort of interesting things that Mike and I had some email exchange, and he's sort of familiar with this, is that from an asset management perspective, he kind of went straight to, why don't you just move the cheese somewhere where it needs to be moved so that behavior can change? So I kind of want to leave it there and to link the enormous change in the trades to the asset leadership kind of way of thinking about it.
A couple of things. One is, before the event with Anto, I have another one next week. So I have this background in Greece on the background, but I have a session with the design intelligence, but it's kind of the similar themes. And I think we need to kind of bring the industry together. Like Anto said, it's about mechanical system, but it's not. It actually applies to everything. And that's kind of been our view, I think, for a long time, of how it's kind of universal. These challenges are universal and can replace mechanical equipment with, fires or whatever, or floods or whatever. It's how do you deal with information and in a way that we can react to and manage assets more efficiently. Okay, so I'm starting with this is an Amazon warehouse, and in 2002, Jeff Bezos put a mandate out. This was 2002. This is over 2 decades ago, where he basically, from a governance perspective, he demanded his teams to share information in an open way, without exception, or you will be fired, basically. I don't know if it's an urban legend or if he really said it or not. I think he actually had something along these lines, but basically said, we're shifting Amazon to be able to use these open connections to do what we do best, and to externalize these, to design them from the ground up, to communicate internally, but also to make them externalizable, to be able to connect to other systems, which is essentially what I think a lot of the digital twin discussions are. But going back to your comment about governance, all these technologies have been around for a long time. There's nothing magical about that, although the IBB and what's happening with that, and what we're going to be presenting at AHR is pretty exciting because it's really open standards, open source, ways of communicating like that. Bezos has the ability to mandate this from an organization perspective, but I think the thrust of this is that any owner should be able to make that kind of declaration. I think a lot of owners of information and owners of assets are pretty timid about just being driven by the technology and what the vendor community or whoever out there is driving the discussion, and owners need to step into it. And I think that's where ISO really comes in, and need to demand this kind of interoperability.
But I think this kind of thinking from an asset perspective is also certainly not something that I'm very familiar with, certainly going back 20 years. So it's the enabling technology and the sort of a different perspective, a holistic perspective. One of the problems with the APIs is it allows you to do lots of things, but in a way, none of it is standard. None of it is standardized, right? Because, to turn a light on and off is the same, whatever light, whatever switch it is, right? So there should be a standard way of turning a light on and off digitally.
Exactly. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And
No need to read.
and a system, some light provider would say, yeah, here's my API to do it, but that's not standardized. That's his or her way of doing it.
It's like having a plug that's not standard. It has 5 prongs on it that are whatever,
right,
weird shapes. And yeah, it works for them, but they can sell that. They can say, look, this plug works great here, but you can't expand that into everything that we need to do.
The thing that people say about simplifying things is they'll think, but there's lots of things that needs to be communicated, right? So the other word to use there is composability, right? Because you need to be able to compose things, right? I need to be able to turn the light on and off, but I also need to know the temperature, right? I don't have to do that as one big complex API integration, but if I can control the light and I can do the temperature, whatever the other thing is, separately, they're both standardized, it's much easier. Lego bricks.
Yeah, exactly. And if I have an app that actually can control that light through some kind of another functionality, then I can plug that in and from a composability perspective, add new functionality on top of what you just described there. But if you try and figure it all out, design it all, it just becomes monolithic and just collapses. So this composability of small modules like Legos, like we keep talking about, you can unplug one, throw away that app, bring another app in, which is what we were used to with our mobile devices. Everything becomes disposable as far as apps go. The functionality is, the need is there, the business need is there, but you need to be able to build anything you want on top of that.